Rain just make you sleep.
Yeah, which is true.
Yeah,
Which is
rain
true.
is rain, man.
Yeah.
Hey, good evening, everybody. How you doing? Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining me. Like right now is guess what? I got some special guests with me. I got my man Hassan, and I got DJ Gerard, aka Brother Black. So right now everybody know who I am, hopefully, but I'm gonna give these brother opportunity to present and say who they are. I'm giving you the mic, Hassan. Introduce me.
I got a long track record. Look, I'll be 60 years old in December. I've seen from the bands in the park to the DJs in the park to when you couldn't have DJs in the park because of gun smoke to, corporate America taking over, and here we are today in 2022, billion-dollar business that unfortunately we don't own anymore.
True.
It's gone.
And sit back and think about it. Look what you just say right now is here. There's something that started in the park to have fun. When they got out, they knew what we had at the mixer and the techniques and
the turntables, the mixer,
the turntable and everything. Something started from nothing to have fun. To get the girls to dance. Now it turned to they didn't want it at first. Then it turned into billions and billions of dollars. Now everybody want to steal that culture.
Listen, I could remember, back in the 70s, the park, like my parents, turn that noise off. It wasn't even music, it was noise. Turn that noise off. Like, they not singing? Like, what is this?
What is that?
Yeah. Oh, I see we got brother Peace in the building. What's going on?
It's all good in the neighborhood.
Yes. So now, Glaze, Peace is in his 60s.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't mean to blow you up or anything like that.
Sorry, hey, I'm proud of it. I'm proud of my age. Knocking on the door, 63. I'm proud.
Right.
A lot of people didn't make it.
Right.
Hey, but like I say, welcome.
The spoken word goes way back.
Okay.
Right.
Gospel music is an example of the spoken word.
Amen.
And when it was changed up a little bit in terms of the instruments and music, some people couldn't accept it. What Kirk Franklin had introduced. But the spoken word goes way back, all the way back to Africa. Nobody can really claim it.
Okay. Right. And see, and that's what this is all about. Like right now, Fat Joe and Busta, hip hop. What they had to say about hip hop, like who was responsible for it. And even right now, like I say, I'm not as old as y'all guys, but I'm right there. On my platform, I like to say I'm 91 and a half years old, but I'm saying I'll be 59 in December. But with that being said, if hip hop was, quote unquote, born in 1973, so you got one guy's 2, one guy's 1. So how in the hell they gonna talk about the culture and the history and who started what?
Well, the thing is, and I understand, and it's, no respect to any of these artists out here, whatever, like Fat Joe, I'm a fan of your music. And I would say, the things that he said, it's not his fault because his elders didn't enlighten him on what was the climate back in the 60s and the 70s. So, us as people, we tend to just take stuff and we roll with it without doing any research or finding out what was the real, what's the source, like what was really going on back then, because what's going on today and what was going on back in 72, 73, 74, totally different ball game. Totally different ball game. And, not to say that people were racist or anything more racist than they are today, but it is a fact that, people stayed with their people, and that's and there's nothing wrong with that. It's not being racist if you're, Puerto Rican and you're around Puerto Ricans, you're Cuban and you hang out with Cubans and you, I don't like using the term black. you're African and you're hanging around Africans, there's nothing wrong with it. But one thing that this hip hop generation did, it did bring all the cultures together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it kind of did what Martin Luther King and Malcolm was trying to do. It kind of did it with music.
Yeah, like you say, back in the beginning, it was
right,
the civil rights movement. That
right,
was
exactly.
the beginning.
So,
okay?
you know, but I would say that, you know, like Fat Joe made a statement about the 50-50 thing, and it's impossible to be 50-50. I mean, it wasn't 50-50. You know, I think every neighborhood throughout New York, you had, you know, different cultures, and you always had like maybe one African American guy that hung around Puerto Ricans, and he was like the guy that just was with the Puerto Ricans, and then you had a Puerto Rican guy that might just hung out with a black guy, and that's just what it was. You know what I'm saying? So when this music thing in the park, you know, like Charlie Chase said that I saw a post, or he was on a podcast. He was like, listen, he said that he was the first Puerto Rican DJ, whatever, and that his people were like, why are you listening to this Jungle Bunny music and whatever. And it's no disrespect. I get it, because that's just what it was. And I think today people are so afraid to like, yo, just tell the truth. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, it is what it is. We all here. I don't care what culture you from, whatever. We all here together. We all got to figure this out somehow, instead of trying to break down and trying to like, I did this first, my people did. Listen, everybody contributed to this culture, but the foundation, you can't take away from who started it. And there were some Puerto Ricans that were involved, but you can't take 10 Puerto Rican guys or Cuban, Dominican, white, whatever, and say that you got 10,000 African Americans that are doing it, and you got 10 Puerto Ricans that are involved. You can't, you know, and like I said, there's no disrespect. It is what it is. It would be almost like saying, because I know somebody that played the bongos, you know, and they hung around somebody in the park, you know, where, you know, Latinos was doing their thing, and say like, oh, Tyrone was involved. He helped start. Like, come on, it's ridiculous. You know, it's just ridiculous.
But you know what? Even before you talk about the bongos, and that's what I was going to say, even before we had the turntable and the mixer and the records, you know what we had? We was beating on garbage can or beating on certain things we couldn't afford some of these equipment, so we made our own music.
Like, okay, for instance.
And what we got to remember, you're talking about young people.
Right.
Teenagers, young people.
Yes.
And when you're broke, you find things to do. Speaking, the spoken word, singing, all that is free. And out of that pain, we came up with something and make it known to the world. And that was the expression, Black thought, Black energy. Right. This was what you have now, what you call the rap. And then later on, it got diluted. So then you have the gangster rap. But these are all expressions of music that Black people, mainly the youth, came up, thus to term hip hop. But it's an extension all the way from Africa.
Yes.
The spoken word,
let me say
whether you have music or not.
Let me say one thing. If anybody's been to DC, right? DC was like a city.
Yeah.
They have their genre of music that's been started. It's called go-go music.
Yeah.
And it's with the congos, the this, the that, da-da-da-da-da. They've been doing that. Now, who could take claim to, yo, I was the first conga player or whatever? Like, it's crazy.
All of it is like extensions from Africa, man. When come playing bongos, the dance, you know what I mean? Even when they come into top rocking, when you see top rocking, a lot of that looks like 52 blocks. You know what I mean? And we all, everything was from it's probably not gonna look like 52 block, like the 52.
Right.
The point I'm making is like the footage is out there, the evidence is out there, this information is out there, and some people just want to ignore it. You know what I mean? And as far as going back, hip hop came from started in Jamaica. You know, I almost fell out my chair that that homie was pushing it that way, man. The information is there. I mean, you know, he's just choosing to ignore it.
Well, listen, you know, okay, Glaze, I want to introduce, you know, a couple of people that came in on the panel. We got Robert from the Disco Twins. Somebody got music, can you turn it down?
What's good? How y'all doing, fellas?
Yeah, that's Robert from the infamous Disco Twins.
Thanks for joining us, man.
What's good? How you doing, everybody?
Good, bro. Good. Thanks for joining us, man.
Okay, we got DJ Divine from the Infinity Machines.
How you doing there, brothers?
How you doing, DJ Divine? Thank you for joining us.
Good.
We got brother Magnetic Peace. He was from a group called New Sounds. We got DJ Gerard, aka Brother Black, and we also have the Black Russian.
What's up?
What's up, fellas? What's going on? What's going on?
Good.
I apologize for the sound in the background, but I had to meet my daughter, so I apologize.
Right. Okay, so I mean, fellas, I want to start this off where we're not going back and forth. We want to keep this like on a professional level or whatever, and just you know, have a topic. You know, I want to talk about the dynamics of New York. You know, back in the 60s and the 70s, just in, you know, neighborhoods, you know, cultural, you know, just what was the climate of New York back in the 60s, early 70s?
Well, you know,
all talking one.
Well, I'll give this to DJ Divine.
Back in the 60s, you know, you had a lot of groups. You had like the Temptations, you had Marvin Gaye, you had a lot of the Motown things going on. And like we're talking like 64, 65, 66. And I think from there, then you had the AM radio, which you had Bobby Bird.
WWRL.
You had all the AM. FM wasn't really popular at that time until maybe the 70s. The early part of the 70s, then you had the bands that used to come out in the park. They used to play, and they used to want DJs to give them breaks in between their little sessions. So, you know, that's when I believe that the DJs, the mobile DJs, was really being presented to the younger community, which is the audience that made up this thing called hip hop. If you want to define hip hop, and I define it as, it was music that attracted young people out in the parks, not in the clubs, not in just in the parks, because I think that that's where it really basically started for New York, in the parks, and then it started to go into little parties and centers, and then it got bigger and bigger. To say one person created it is kind of hard to say, because in the 70s, I was well aware of what was going on. So everybody stayed in their area. So what they was doing in Brooklyn, they did in Brooklyn. What they was doing in Queens, they did in Queens. What they do in the Bronx, they did in the Bronx. And it's all fine and good to say that this person was the creator of this borough, because maybe he was the first one to do it in that borough. But at the same time, there was other things going on. It wasn't like, newsflash, this is what we want y'all to do. This is something new. because it would have been claimed then. It would have been claimed even 78, it would have been claimed. Even in 79, it would have been claimed. But now all of a sudden we're getting all these stories about people saying a lot of things on how they started or who was really involved in it. But if you go all the way back, like how I was listening to your brothers go all the way back to Africa and all that, yeah, it's an offspring. And even when Hassan did the documentary, he showed you that Louis Armstrong and all these guys was catting and they was saying rhymes. It just didn't have a name for it. Who named it? I don't know. But I know one thing, that when we started doing music, hip hop evolved into what we was doing. You know, it was something that just attracted young people. It was music that attracted young people. New Sounds was the one who influenced Goody to get all the speakers. He said, and I remember this, he said, Divine, if you come play with us, our system is going to sound just as good as New Sounds. And New Sounds was influenced for Infinity Machine to become Infinity Machine. And it was a dream that Goody had. So it was a dream that was being fulfilled. And at that time, it wasn't a big thing. It wasn't a big thing of a name called hip hop. It was just music that attracted young people. And then everybody bought their different styles, because the boroughs wasn't interaction with each other until the later part of the 70s. All right. So, like I said, I don't know who named it hip hop, and all I could say is that the early age of hip hop, like the Disco Twins, like New Sounds, we was people who inspired people to become DJs, to become MCs, and to become a part of this big thing they call hip hop. And it was a culture because it was amongst the majority that I know, Black people. All right. It came from us, period. So when other people say, it's disturbing to hear other people say that they brought in a culture on something that what we started.
And you know what, right? DJ Divine, even with that being said, everybody's entitled to feel the way that they feel. But just like I'm listening to every words that coming out of y'all guys' mouth from the platform so far, and I like that because I remember, even like you said right now, is how they used to carry these records in milk crates. How it wasn't until after the blackout that everybody started getting extra equipment to go out there to party. So what I'm just trying to say right now is I just remember what I remember from when it started from. We couldn't get in the club. It had to keep that noise outside before it started going to these centers, before it started going to certain events. But it was a what you call an elevation, was a growing process that right. People start making it more acceptable. And then as I'm sitting back thinking about it, and I'm not trying to throw, saying stone, I make people feel bad, but it's like right now is only thing I remember from growing up in the melting pot from, different culture was these guys was known for breakdancing, spinning on their head. And, pardon me if I'm wrong, but that's what I remember.
If I could interject, what's up, fellas?
What's up?
What up?
Earlier, me and Haas were talking, and it's funny that this this conversation has taken the life that it's taken. When you think about hip hop, like Glaze just spoke about breakdancing. Breakdancing is definitely a part of hip hop. Graffiti was a part of hip hop, but the reality is that hip hop. What we talking about back then, because back then it wasn't even, nobody was calling it hip hop. We was just jamming in the park, going to the park, who had the biggest speakers, who had the biggest sound. This is something that was started by Black people. It's funny to hear some of these conversations because you were there doesn't mean you necessarily started something, right? Hassan got High Life Entertainment. Me and Hassan known each other for forever. I can't, and I've been by his side, right, with that. But I can't tell people I started that. That's like me coming along and saying, yo, I started High Life Entertainment. Because when Hassan was doing it, I was there. That doesn't mean you started it. That doesn't mean you created it. Again, I'm not trying to take anything away from anybody who loves this music, who loves this culture, but it's really almost absurd to me that it's become a thing that Latinos have started. Like, how is that possible? Can anybody expound on how that's even possible?
Right. Well, so I think, you know, when I asked what was the dynamic, what was going on during the 60s and 70s, I want somebody to kind of like expound on the relationships with the different cultures during that time. Like, what was the climate? What was, you know, was everybody cool with every other culture back then? Or was it like, you know, Africans, Americans stayed with themselves and Puerto Ricans stayed with themselves and Cubans? What was the dynamic then?
That's what it was. Everybody stayed within their own race.
Yeah.
Right. I used to, when I was going to high school, they used to have to bus us in special buses because I was going to Francis Lewis, and the Caucasians just didn't like blacks. You couldn't go to certain areas in Queens. All right. So you had to, like, in the 60s and 70s, it was heavy. It was like everybody stayed within their group. It's like when they sell a home, they're not going to bring me to Howard Beach to show me a house. So everybody had their own community.
Well,
everybody did have their own community, and that. Go ahead.
First of all of the ones of us that had Spanish friends, most of them came from school with us. We had to see them in school, and you get close to people in school, but they don't necessarily live in your neighborhood. So when school's over, you come back to your neighborhood. It's predominantly black if you're black, and that's it for that friend. You got a friend that's in school. So some of us lived on borders too, like me. I lived on a border, and so did Hassan. We lived where we were closer to Hispanic people, and me and him had Hispanic friends. And we also had to visit their house and stuff like that. And the funny thing about that was me and him both went through the same thing. We had a friend that was Spanish and close to us, but his family wasn't messing with us.
See, I think part of
it was telling us that, you know, we heard stuff like bueno no bueno and all that stuff from the older group, the older generation, not the ones that was right at our age, but their parents. And I had to go through that. Probably all of us, they all probably went through that somewhere sooner or later, where you had a Spanish friend, but the elders, they wasn't messing with us. And like Charlie Chase said, he opened up an old wound with me when he said they used to call it jungle bunny music. I had buried that word in my brain for years. I forgot about that terminology, that spear chuckers and jungle bunnies. I had forgot about that. But the reality is we stayed amongst ourselves and we created stuff amongst ourselves. And a big problem with how this is all getting confusing too is people saying they created hip hop and trying to disconnect disco from hip hop, like as if hip hop didn't evolve from disco, and that was before everybody else joined in with us. Period. Disco,
you know what? Funny.
Hip hop. How the hell you got
you know what
disco?
I say to that most of the people that be throwing disco under the bus don't go to an old school party. Never go to one.
Never been to them.
Never been to one.
Today,
don't
go to old school party because that's what it is. You understand what I'm saying? That's the music we was playing back then. To me, disco is the Village People. To me,
South Soul Orchestra.
You know that you know though that kind, to me that's real disco. But the other is a little different. And the same music they're talking about is the music that everybody that's being a hypocrite coming to these parties. Is disco so bad? Don't come.
I think that it's funny. I think one of the reasons the history is being convoluted is because of the power of the music, right? So Haas just brought up a subject about how at one point every group used to just rock with their group. And yeah, we lived close. Those that we from Corona, East Elmhurst, we lived close to different communities. Actually, we're from a very diverse part of Queens that is really diverse now. But at one point, it was kind of segregated. The black people lived here, Spanish people lived there, white people lived there, right? But I think this conversation is becoming convoluted. Not this one with us, just the one about the role that Latinos play in hip hop. I think it's becoming convoluted because the power of this music is so incredible that it has brought everybody together, right? Because of hip hop, everybody is rocking with each other now. Because of hip hop, right? Everybody is wearing the same thing. Everybody is talking the same way. Everybody is moving the same. It's this lingo, this culture that has created this oneness in a bunch of different people who at one time weren't one. And I really think it's because of the power of the music that this conversation is convoluted. And that's not to take away from the value of Latinos to hip hop. I'm not trying to do that. I'm not trying to disrespect any Latin artists. I'm not on some, that's not it. But this conversation is really strange to me in that this was something that was started by people who didn't have anything. That was the beauty of this. The beauty of this was that, this music was something that these people could have because they didn't have anything else. You talk about even before my time, right? The people were playing the sandbox. The concrete jungle was real, right?
Right.
You didn't have.
Look, Rush. Let's we're gonna get to that. I just want to stick to the script here.
Okay.
We trying to take it from the beginning to where we are now.
Well,
you know what I mean?
You could go to the splits on all of that. I started hanging out in the disco fever where all this hip hop was at. The disco fever.
But Al, we're gonna get to that. We're gonna start from the beginning. We're gonna bring it down.
Okay.
So all right. So we in the 60s and 70s. So Divine, Peace, Twin. You guys are older, and we're saying that everything was basically segregated. So, like, what was, Latinos during that time, what were they doing? Like, how were they dressed? What kind of music did they listen to? What was the culture?
Well, for me, at that time, I think we wasn't getting along at that much. And I know from where I was, from the Hotel Diplomat, it was mostly African American that was coming to the events. There was one person that was Latino that was giving a party there. I know Eddie Rivera, John Jellybean Benitez used to come there, but that usually was a mixed crowd. But from what I remember, we never mingled too much with them because we there was little going back then. You had the Savage Skulls, you had the gangs out there in the Bronx, and most of us were scared to go to the Bronx. It was all burnt out.
Right.
There was a lot of turmoil going on there, so we never really hung out with too many Spanish people. So, and not to say we didn't like anything else, but that's just what it was at the time. I had a good Spanish friend that was Disco Kid, Louis Roman. So we got along very well, but it wasn't too common out there back then, from what I remember.
Right. And so, Peace, let me ask you a question. Like with the fashion, we are, everybody knows 70s mock necks, Playboys, gabardines, whatever, were the Hispanics, dressing like that back then.
I can't really speak for the Hispanics. They had their own particular style, and all that is based on economics. And if you got to work, then you have work clothes. You go to church, you need church clothes. I think that was across the board, whether you spoke English or Spanish. But the music part, in my humble opinion, hip hop is the voice of protest that young people were expressing, and then over time, at points, then music such as beats, the drums, like James Brown, when revived the James Brown breaks, where someone can speak over it, but they were addressing issues of the time. And it morphed into or grew into conscious rap. But again, you talk about the spoken word, you speaking, whether you speak slow, whether you speak fast, whether you got music in the background or not, but you're speaking, you're addressing something. Disco as a whole is just a dance. That's why you have discotheque. The root word of discotheque is disco. You go to dance. People just go to have fun and dance. Now you can dance to something conscious, something positive, some of the rap groups that came out. But the bottom line, it was the voice of the people that was not being censored by corporations. And then once they got involved, then it came something else. That's when you go mainstream. Then hip hop took a negative turn in terms of the expression and the influence. That's why the OJ says there's a message in the music. What was the message? So the message of conscience and black pride and black power and black love, that was powerful. So that part of the message that was in the music had to be diluted and changed and switched up. That's when you get the hardcore gangster rap, and then you call women out of their names and all this other crazy stuff. That's how the spoken word got contaminated.
Right. That's okay. So we getting off the script again. We got to stay on the script. So I mean, the question was,
I can't speak for the Spanish folks too much. I didn't really hang out.
Well, basically, I mean, 70s, 60s, 70s. I mean, from what I recall, it was everybody went to Delancey Street, Jamaica Avenue, Simpson Street, Simpson Street, Juhan, whatever, and we all dressed the same across the board. But everybody had their different style where back then you could look at somebody, oh, he from Brooklyn, oh, he from Queens, oh, he from Uptown, whatever. It was the same gear, but everybody just wore it different.
And again, you're talking about people that's in school. You're talking
about but I'm still just talking about the culture of
and the age group.
Right. So our culture, we have a thing of, as Black people, we let everybody in.
Yeah,
we let everybody in. So what happens is people come in and then they start making claims that they started this or they was halfway, whatever. And it's like I said, it's all good. It's just, listen, just know your history. At the end of the day, there were, Latinos that were there, that was involved. But you can't make a claim that it was 50-50. That's just totally ridiculous. Because if that's the case, I saw a clip, look at the pictures, the videos. I have not seen one picture or one video of half and half. What I see is a sea of Black people with a couple of Latinos there, and it's all good. It's just tell the truth. It's like, us as people, we're getting tired of people taking from us everything we create. Somebody comes along and says that they did it, and then 20 years later, the whole narrative is changed, and we gotta stop this. Either you with the cause or you not. Separation of, I'm from Jamaica. I never knew Jamaica was a race. Puerto Rico, I didn't know that was a race. So get it together, people, because at the end of the day, you only fooling yourself.
Yo, you know what's strange? People not even listening to how this argument started. Fat Joe said Blacks, Latinos created hip hop 50-50. If you look at the responses, it's emotional responses, because everybody actually knows, even the Latinos, that's not true. That's why they all responded with, we contributed, we was there. They didn't argue 50-50. They broke off of that. Nobody was arguing about 50-50. They switched the argument to we were there. We contributed. Because they know that they wasn't there 50-50. And the problem is, once they know we was all gonna say no, and that hurts their feeling. That's why
but that's the whole point. We have to start being unapologetically Black, and we can't worry about what other people think because they on their own thing. Everybody wants to be Black when it's convenient for them, and then they want to separate when it's convenient. And it's like, you know, either you with the movement, there's no reason to come out and make these statements. If you with the movement, you know, the truth is the truth.
How did this conversation even come up with Fat Joe? I think he was the first one to speak on this. Like, what was the premise of the conversation?
At this point, it doesn't matter. It's that it's not true. It's a lie.
His statement, right? His statement is untrue. We made Blacks and Puerto Ricans did not create hip hop 50-50. That's
And then, first of all, it's like you're talking about something that was in the 70s, and how old are you?
Well,
make those statements. Right. And today's climate that we live in is a different story. Everybody's involved. They doing hip hop in China, Japan, whatever. No, we're talking about the foundation when it first started. Everybody jumped on the bandwagon. Not everybody.
That's the key.
And then some people were able to make money and become millionaires and feed their families, and that's all well and good. Just keep the truth, you know, like tell the truth.
I know one thing from my perspective. Back then, when we was coming, and you're talking about the mid 70s, there was no rapper out there. It was mostly, you know, solo MCs with the Yes or whatever. There was no record. So I don't know where that came from, but the first rap record besides King Tim the Third, is that what his name? King Tim?
Yeah.
And first. After that, you know, I heard Shit Go Hill Gang, and those cats, you know, anybody else was to me from mine. What's his name? JD.
Right, from New Sounds.
From New Sounds. I was a fan of his. And that was before me. When these guys was coming in, that's when they was leaving, going out, that's when we was coming in.
You know what's interesting though, which is another conversation. The first two rap records, I mean, no one knows which one came out first, Sugar Hill Gang or King Tim the Third. Those two records, the artists, they were not rappers. They did not do the stuff in the street, in the park, or nothing. That's what's crazy.
Facts.
If you look at it, like they, you know, Sylvia Robinson put the group together out of Jersey. They weren't. And then King Tim the Third, he was somebody that was with the Fatback Band.
You know, it's funny because there was no Latino hip hop group. There was no Latino crew. I don't know of any Spanish Puerto Rican rap crew. I know that there were some Latino rappers who were part of different crews. But if you were 50-50, why wasn't there any all Latin crew? Because there was all Black crews. Why wasn't there all Latin crews?
Because they be trying to stick them into the other elements. A lot of their responses was they were more than us in the breakdancing part, and there was more of them in the graffiti part, and there was more of them in the breakdancing part. But we still created both of those too. And there wasn't more of y'all there either. That became later.
Yeah, I was gonna say
it came later.
It became later. That was at the end.
They came later. Right.
Okay, guys, don't talk over each other. Don't talk over each other. Let's keep this.
Basically, it was something we put down and they picked it up. It's like right now today, Asians do breakdancing more than they do right now. So I guess in 100 years they created it. Because if you look, Asians got more breakdancing contests in their country than we got anywhere. They do that all the time now. You can go all on YouTube. It's them. Somebody else picked it up and they went with it. That's what they did with breakdancing. But they're responding in the like we rap and we rap and we DJ, and that's where we're dominant. But they dance and they do graffiti, and that's where they're dominant. That's how they're trying to make this 50-50 balance.
So basically that's what I was about to say. I see somebody put up a comment saying that Puerto Ricans helped create hip hop if you're talking graffiti, popping, and breakdancing. And again, you can't refute that, you know, they were a part of that. But are we talking about certain segments of hip hop, or are we talking about the mic part of the hip hop?
But it doesn't really matter. No one is saying that Puerto Ricans were not involved. That's not the problem. The problem is the 50-50.
Let me
That's the problem.
For me, coming into hip hop, I was like in love with the DJ Divine, Disco Twins. I'm a few years under them. I made it up to the Ecstasy Garage as a young kid. I made it to the Autobahn in Harlem. 120.
I ain't see you up there, son.
The Jamaican Queens, the Armory. Coming up to the park and see new sounds where I didn't even know what they were. The 50-50 thing, man, I mean, I don't know where they get that from, and we need to kill that. The evidence is out there. There's still footage of this, you know, of these parties. And I will say, man, us as blacks, we're the most giving, and you know what I'm saying, we're quick to let people in anything we do. That's why we have these problems all the time. You can't even go work in these stores. You can't
but listen, Gerard, we don't want to make this into that. You know, we're just keeping it about this. And like I said about Fat Joe earlier, it's like, yo, fan of the music, like, you know, what you've done for the culture and all that. All we saying is, brother, is like, look, let's just keep it official. And you made a statement, maybe now you might realize I just exaggerated a little, whatever. It's all good, but let's just look. We all together here, and we just trying to keep the history intact, because there's a lot of other stuff going on about who started what and what borough, and that's a whole nother story. But with the, you know, the inception and the creation and all that stuff about, you know, the 50-50, you know, that's just a false statement. And, you know, we got to move on to, well, I know Glaze, go ahead. I know you.
Listen to this comment by Miss Matthew. It's being taught in colleges, and the Pels may be really upset that professor keep repeating the Bronx, New York, Grandmaster Flower, Grandmaster Flaz, etc. They want those professors to include. So when you sit back and look at it, you're right, it's a perception. But those that was there, we know the history. We know where it started from. Because once again, we know because we live it. We lived it, we ate it, we sleeped it. So now all of a sudden, some of these folks that became very successful for something that they didn't even want in the community. They didn't even want this music into their household. But guess what happened? It became a moneymaker. So once it became a $1 billion industry, now everybody want parts of it.
Yeah, well,
yeah, absolutely. Let
me just say this real quick. Like, okay, so what this person is saying, you know, the Bronx, New York, Grandmaster Flowers. Flowers is from Brooklyn. So that's the problem here. People say stuff and it's like Flowers is from Farragut Projects in Brooklyn. Downtown. It's not from the Bronx.
No, I think her comment was. I think her comment was that I think maybe she was just lumping people together, saying that the Pales.
Well, maybe she did, but it said the Bronx, and it said Grandmaster Flowers and Grandmaster Flash. So I'm just saying, just for people that don't know, Grandmaster Flowers was from Brooklyn. Flowers was the first Grandmaster, if people didn't know. Flowers played in Yankee Stadium in 1969. Intermission for James Brown. 1969. You know, that's not disco. Disco's not even invented yet. So it's like, people, let's like research and stop the bickering. You know what I mean? It's like, because it's just,
But it's like he said, it's because younger people are coming in. They don't even know the history. They're just going on word of mouth, and they repeating history that's untrue. That's all. It was when Charlie Chase made his statement. People was saying, "How you gonna take Charlie Chase word over Fat Joe? You can't know the history if you say that. If you say how you gonna take, how could you possibly know the history if you're gonna take Fat Joe's word over what was going on in early hip hop over Charlie Chase?
Charlie Chase.
Something's wrong right there. We have a problem right there.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
again,
okay.
I think part of I don't know, Haas. I just want to say, the more I think about these conversations, and even the more I think about this forum, I'm starting to wonder what it seems like we're talking more about music, right? The actual music. And maybe these other dudes are talking about breakdancing and graffiti.
Oh, okay, but this is okay. The reality is, Nas said this. I think it's like 15 years ago. His album was called "Hip Hop Is Dead."
Yeah, that was a while ago.
Nothing that anybody does today is remotely close to what hip hop was. No one's cutting and scratching. No one has a group where you're doing routines. No one's breakdancing except the other people. You know what I'm saying? That, you know, China, Japan, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Nobody's writing graffiti. So what is it that what are they doing today? The music, because that's not what, you know, hip hop, unless you want to say that, yo, it evolved into what it is today. And that's
I think that's another conversation.
What we're talking about is back then. You know, that's the whole story, is what was going on back then. Who was involved? Everybody might have been involved, but you can't say that. And I'm going to say it again, the 50-50 rule is just ridiculous. People moved into, and me and Al was talking about this earlier. Every neighborhood basically in New York, if it was urban, it was a black neighborhood, and everybody else, quote unquote, moved into the neighborhood. You had to adapt to what we was doing. We didn't adapt to you. And this is to you, Busta Rhymes, about Americans ain't have no culture. Like, Busta, were you not a 5%? Do they got 5% in Jamaica?
Back then, no.
They don't have them now.
And then I'm just trying to interject, but when you look at hip hop in Queens, right? You didn't have graffiti because we had homes. So you're not going to get a whole bunch of people writing on the side of somebody's home.
Graffiti was a train thing.
All right. Yeah, graffiti was on the train, but also was written on like
buildings and warehouses and
warehouse. Right. In Queens, that wasn't a big part of hip hop. The big part of hip hop in Queens was the music. So it's the music that laid the foundation that drawed the people together, and it drawed them together for a cause. Just like my brother Magnetic Peace was saying, it was a message that we expressed the economical conditions that what we was living at that time, and we always talked about how we wanted to be this and how we wanted fly things and all that stuff, and that's where it just evolved, and it just became more attractive to people because it's a type of music that it has a great influence over young people. It gives them hope, and it gives them a desire to do something better than what they were doing. Because actually, in South Jamaica, I didn't realize how bad it was. People was, with Fat Cat, with Corley, Supreme, and all them guys, because they was my friends. They was like my buddy. They was like, we was like mad cool. So I didn't see the danger in what was going all around because I could walk wherever I needed to walk to with no problem. But I could tell you one thing, when I walked in Queensbridge, it was a whole different thing. It was like, wow, it felt like, I felt like how people probably felt when they came through 40 and all that. But what I'm trying to say is that it was the music that brought everybody together. And then people had just got better with their style of rap. and I think if you're gonna say the foundation of hip hop, you have to start with the music, and everything else was added on. You know,
Right.
the graffiti was added on whenever they added it on. I can't say what year they started, but I know that we was using pause tape to try to get, because in the beginning you didn't have a mixer with headphones on it, so you didn't know how to cue it up.
Right.
You know, so I can understand. Herc didn't know how to DJ at all. He didn't know how to cut or get stuff on beat. You know, that came later on in the 70s with a clubbing mixer, where you was able to hear the next record. You know, when New Sound started playing, man, I used to watch them guys, man, and I said, wow, these guys blend so great. You know, so they influenced me to become a blender. And then what I needed to do was look for break beats and blend them together and cut. When I saw the Disco Twins play, I saw them cut. So you know, it's all about, for me, and I was there in the beginning part of hip hop before it was hip hop. It was We Are the Groups, New Sounds, Disco Twins, Infinity Machine that influenced other people to become rappers and to become to the next level. LL told me that I influenced him personally. On that side of town,
Yep.
I'm quite sure
I
they
remember
could.
I was sitting in a restaurant. What's that restaurant on Linden Boulevard? So on Linden and over there. Well, there was a restaurant over there that my brother and I we had known for a little while, and he was sitting in there with the owner sitting at the counter, and me and my brother walked in there, and he was just sitting there, and the owner introduced us to him, and he says, "Yo, man, I and watch y'all play in 48 Park, man. I was inspired by y'all. You know, I'm definitely gonna put you in my book or whatever, blah 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 blah." And me and my brother looked at each other. Damn, word? You remember us? And you know, you'd be surprised. Sometimes people just don't want to say stuff. You know, want to give us our flowers, but he gave us a little something. He and I on before when he was Mike Tyson. You heard that one?
Yeah, I heard the one that Mike Tyson. Yeah.
Yeah, but you know,
Right, but Twin,
some people just don't want to tell the truth,
right,
man.
Right now, we're talking about other cultures saying that they influence. Busta Rhymes made a statement saying that
We have no
Americans
culture.
have no culture, and that everything in hip hop came from Jamaica.
He bugging. That's all. Straight up. He bugging.
I see what you're talking about. I mean, cut off, but
there's
we can't
something
speak for
going
that
on
because
with the audio,
they weren't there. They weren't there.
They definitely
So
wasn't
it's
there.
like I can't speak on how much I speak about it because that's not true. They weren't there. As far as I'm concerned, he wasn't there. He wasn't. I think he couldn't even come outside. If I'm not mistaken.
He wasn't there. He couldn't come outside.
And I don't
He might
mean
not have even been born.
away. He probably couldn't come outside. So I can't edify what he's saying because it doesn't sound realistic. I'm like, I know what we were doing and all of us was doing at that time. There was, like I said, there was no rap. So only person that said it was rapping is the Cold Crush brothers. And I think they're a little younger than us, if I'm not mistaken.
Younger than you.
You know what I mean? Huh?
Hey,
Younger than you.
Maybe
Older than you,
divide.
younger than you.
They're younger,
Blaze.
younger than, I said younger. They're a little younger than us. So I don't know what was going on. Maybe because Grandmaster Cass and Charlie Case, that the association. So maybe that's where that came in because he's Spanish. I don't know.
okay, could it
When
be?
he was in the group, he was one DJ in a group with 6 members, and he was the one Spanish member. And the Fantastic Five was another 6 group member with only 2 of them in it. And then the Treacherous 3 had none of them. And whatever had none of them. I mean, so They're definitely not talking about the rap part, and they're definitely not talking about the DJing part. Their minds are stuck on. They feel hurt because it sounds like we said they're mixing the word with create and contributing. They're mixing those two words up. We say Fat Joe said create.
Right.
They're saying contributing. They were there, so they're trying to avoid the create question part of the question, and they're just jumping on the contributing part because they want to feel important. They want to feel like they're part of something because by saying we say y'all didn't help us create nothing, they feel blanked out. So they're rushing at us right now saying, "Oh, we were there. We contributed." Nobody says you didn't contribute. We're not arguing about contribute. We're talking about create.
Hey, gentlemen. Hey, could it be with these individuals and how they feel and what they thinking because they was able to create a hell of a nest egg for themselves behind this? So it's not like they created the actual hip hop culture, but that's what they created a hell of a bag for themselves off it.
Well, they did create a bag. It's the problem is that the culture was Black American culture.
Yeah, we know that. But what I'm just trying to say, being that they beat, they got fed, so automatically they staking their ownership. So automatically it's a psychological thing. We living off of this. We made money off of this.
Listen, Busta Rhymes, dope rapper. Of course, nobody can't take nothing from him. With that, the problem is that when you're making statements, the statements you're making, first of all, you're trying to separate. Like I said earlier, Jamaicans is not a race. People got to vote before they got to America. That's the only difference. Your culture is you eat curry chicken, you eat jerk chicken, whatever. Other than that, you're the same people. But I can't, that's like saying a bunch of Americans go to Jamaica with kids and we don't have to adapt their culture. And we create our own thing. That's not what it is. That's not how it works. You came here. I don't know if he was born here or if he was born in Jamaica. If he was born here, but if he was born here or if you came here young from Jamaica, come on. Everybody knows. It's no secret. Anybody that didn't come from this country, when you was young, you got picked on because you wore high waters, you had pointy roach stomper shoes, you didn't dress right, whatever. Your family didn't even want you to mess with Black Americans. And we get it, you know what I'm saying? But that's people that's ignorant. But as you get older, you start getting colonized. You start getting cool. You start getting your swag. You start going to Delancey, getting your sheepskin now. This and that. That's American Black culture. That's not nobody else's culture. Well, and this culture that American Blacks created is around the world. Everybody's cool now. Everybody's cool and wants to be Black until you don't want to be Black. Maybe
hold up. Maybe they want to be Black because maybe reparations is coming around the corner.
I guarantee you, if the president says tomorrow, you know what? Everybody that's Black, we got you. Everybody that's, I'm Puerto Rican. I'm Dominican. I'm Jamaican. You gonna want that bag though?
Yeah, we know that one. Hell yeah.
Yo, we talking about how to dress. That's a fact. Because I remember they came, like he said, they wasn't matching. They wasn't matching at all. None of that. And then about a year later, you could see everybody was dressed like us.
Nah, it wasn't a year later. It was in the 80s when the crack came out and niggas started getting money. Everybody was cool then. You getting money. You got a Maxima. He got a Cressida. Puerto Rican, you got a Toyota, a Datsun, whatever, with the wheels. Everybody cool now because the money came in. The 80s.
Anybody co-signing what they're saying? Because I don't know anything. Anybody co-signing it or debunk what they're saying?
No, Charlie Chase debunked it. Whip debunked it. Ruby D debunked it. Puerto Ricans debunked it themselves. Legendary Puerto Ricans debunked it. But it's like as if that's just going, like they don't want to hear that part. They're listening to Fat Joe and Busta Rhymes because I guess that's their age group or they're focusing on. It's young people making this argument really more go on and on. like you said earlier, is people who wasn't even there, people who have no connection to this stuff. They're just listening to one girl, a Spanish girl, used Crazy Legs as the ultimate authority of old school hip hop. He's not even the founder of the Rocksteady Crew. He came later. How can he be the founder? How can he be the voice that you're going to take over other voices? Charlie Chase, Ruby D, and Whipper Whip were actually hanging with black people in there. If Ruby D's telling you I was the only guy in the party, I was the only guy at the jam, and he's Puerto Rican, and his word don't mean nothing, then what can we possibly say that means something?
And then I'm going to even take it back. I mean, I'm going to fast forward some, actually, to 79. I was in the Disco Fever in 79. Right. I got pictures, as they say, yo, youngsters, receipts. I got receipts. 79, 80, 81, 82, 83. I was in Harlem World, 80, 81, 82, 83. I was there for the infamous battle with Busy B and Mo D. I was there when Brooklyn came in and just went crazy on everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was there. I was, what you call it, where Theodore used to play, Ecstasy Garage. I used to go to Theodore's house, Holmes Road. A cousin of mine was locked up north. His Theodore's cousin was locked up north. They met. I got introduced to Theodore. I used to go to Theodore's crib.
When you was in the Fever,
all these parties, it was.
When you was in the Fever, the parties, what was the domination of the crowd?
Well, it was. I would say if it was 500 people, you might see 200 or 300. I mean, 500 people, you would see like maybe 4 or 5 Latinos that was in the culture. That's the problem. Most of them were not in the culture. Today, everybody's in the culture. It wasn't like that before, and there's nothing wrong with that. It just is what it is. When you go to Rome, you do as the Romans do. You can't go to Rome and be whatever. You got to conform. If you don't conform, how you going to eat?
I'm still wondering when he said 50-50 created. Anyway, so what happened to their 50% today? Because they quit? I mean, I'm saying, if it was 50-50 in the creation and it's making money now, why did they quit?
So look, Glaze, what's the next topic? Because the thing is, I don't want this to end up being like we bashing on somebody, because that's not what this is. We trying to really get some history so there's some understanding.
And you know what? We on course because base right now, we don't talk on several.
Yeah.
I'm hearing the echo. Y'all good? Y'all can hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. We don't touch on just about everything from jamming in the park, breakdancing and b-boying. But right now, dress code. When you talk about dress code, what was the dress code back then? Because it was a subject about the dress code between Puerto Rican, Jamaican versus African American. And to me, like I think me and you touched on this earlier, right now is when did we really start getting fly? Like when did everybody start matching they, pro cats with their BVDs and Paris underwears? When did all that start? And to me, I remember right after the blackout.
Blackout was 77.
No, we were doing that before that.
It was way before that. It was
listen, okay.
Sit back and think about
Sit back and think about it.
it.
Okay, you know what? Okay, y'all probably a little older than me. And when I'm saying it was done before that, but I'm thinking when that blackout happened, it was a trend that it had to be consistent.
Right, around the city with everything. True.
We was doing it since before we had leather sneakers. We was matching.
Yeah.
When it was hot canvas sneakers, when we had Uptowns and Pro Cams, flyers, we was matching with our Playboy.
Oh man,
all that stuff we was matching. Our shirts matched our shoes, our pants matched our hat.
Right.
We was doing this. That's black culture, bro.
On a larger magnitude.
We had more class.
The minute
and we really believed in dressing just to impress.
Yeah, but I'm saying, but back in the day, like we dressed in suits. Black men dressed in suits as a stature. We wore suits. I remember Cold Crush used to be on the stage in suits. I remember all the black people was in suits. Urban wear came out. Urban wear is where this new groove comes now. Urban wear. Well, now remember when you used to wear your sweatsuit with your letters pressed on it with the iron?
Right.
Letters and stuff on it. That you didn't come out there with. You came out there with that sweat. Somehow your Adidas or your Pumas was rocking with that stuff, and we was doing that before that. This has always been part of our culture. Getting fly. People of poverty. Back then we tried to buy stuff. A sweatshirt was cheap. $5 for the shirt, $7 for them pants, maybe. You got a matching outfit. You got two outfits. You got two mixed.
I want to get back. I want to talk. You mentioned fashion. You know, my building that I grew up in was basically, we used to call it like the United Nations, because it was like Blacks, Cubans, Dominicans, Puerto Ricans. It was everything. And you know, when you were a kid, you know, children. I mean, adults need to learn from children, because like you could take children, no matter the color, whatever, they're gonna play. They don't know the racism. It's learned, you know, either from their parents or from experiences that they go through, that they learn, like, you know, wow, I'm not the same as this person. I don't get treated like this person, or what have you. But I know for a fact that growing up, when we became, I say that first summer job, 14 years old, when you could get that summer job and you could go shopping yourself on Pitkin Avenue or Lansing, whatever, get your gabardines. Everybody, we were all like robots wearing the same thing. The other cultures, they were not into, you know, they were wearing skips. Remember skips? Rejects. They wasn't wearing Pro-Keds and Converses. They were wearing skips. That's a part of hip hop culture, is you got to have on some Pro-Keds or some 69ers. You know, then a little later on, the Pumas and Adidas came out and all the rest. But the foundation was, if you didn't have a pair of Pro-Keds or Converses, you was whack. Like you couldn't hang because you got on skips.
Right, because you know what they used to say back in the days. If your shoes slip and slide, get the one with the star on the side.
What happened to reject?
Yeah,
reject. We said that was a word.
Feet feel fine. Reject. It costs $1.99.
Wow. We was terrible, man.
But yeah, so the point that I'm making is that the dress was part of. You couldn't go to these park jams if you weren't official. And then, I'm not gonna say that there wasn't people that wasn't official, but they was the ones that was in the corner on the sidelines watching. They wasn't dancing with the chicks. They wasn't on the turntable. They wasn't on the mic. They was kind of like on the outside looking in at everybody else having fun.
And yo, Haas, that you just put point a good point. That's why a lot of the brothers stopped breakdancing.
Yeah, because
it's good
if you flipping around on the floor, doing all this stuff, and I got my brand new terry cloth short set and my new Pumas. I'm like,
I'm gonna breakdance no more with the stuff on I got on. I'm gonna stuff the 3 lines off my Uptown Pro-Keds if I'm out there breakdancing. I'm gonna lose my lines on the side, and y'all gonna be snapping on me. Not happening, bro.
No, we gonna get that mark out. Mark
Don't do that. Don't do that, bro. Hold on 1 second, though. I got one question, though, because I'm lost on this one, though. Which one came out first? The 3 stripes around the side or the red and blue? The red and blue is the first.
The red and blue one.
I thought the 3 stripes.
That's your old head. Yeah, we wore the 3 stripes. Okay.
The 3 stripes.
Oh, the 3 stripes was second.
And the other was Pro-Ked, too.
Yeah, both of them was Pro-Keds. Pro-Keds.
With the 69 on the side.
The newer one, right?
No, they're the older ones.
That's the older one.
The red and blue ones are the newer ones.
Oh wow!
I
ain't like the red and blue. I hated the red and blue stuff.
Those are originals.
The red and blue, no. It was
that's what I was thinking of those two. But somebody said
nah, I'm gonna tell you, the 3 stripes were the originals.
Okay.
Then they came out with the red and blue. They were called Super Pro-Keds.
Okay.
They discontinued. You know me. I know they discontinued the 3 stripes.
We called it the Uptown. We called it Uptown.
They came back out maybe around 78, something like that, and then they became better than the red and blue.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
We called it Uptown.
Then a lot of people don't know what Pumas. okay, Puma Clydes were
Puma
out.
Clyde, exactly.
Puma, yeah, Sway Pumas.
Yeah, but they got discontinued around 81, 82. Clyde lost his deal was up with Puma.
He went to Spoiled Dean.
No, but that's what I'm saying. His deal was up with Puma.
Yeah.
He did another deal with Spalding and came out with the Spalding sneakers. Puma came back out like 2 years later, but it didn't have Clyde on it no more.
Right.
Yeah.
The original white on white Pumas, the ones that have, they didn't have the little lines going down.
The basket.
Yeah.
They still don't look the same to me.
Right, no, they don't. But
still don't look
we got to stay on the script, fellas. So we
Fashion, your Playboys. You went and got the original Playboys back.
Right, I showed it to Glaze the other day. I know.
Oh, you showed it?
I was about to say we definitely jumped off into other areas, but those areas are all related to hip hop.
Right. So we right now,
related to the evolution.
Right now we're talking, you know.
I actually heard you guys.
Fashion, right? But the fashion culture, like now. So what I was saying, I have a lot of dear friends that are Latino, Puerto Rican, Dominican, Cuban, that I know I could turn my back on them and they could turn their back on me. And I grew up with them from when I was a kid that I'm still in touch with. But they will tell you that when I would go to the crib, it was like I had to show them the way to be cool. You know, a man, I don't want to say his name, but he had the DA back then, the pushback or whatever, the John Travolta. You know, and I remember he got a Caesar and his mother flipped out and was like, yo, you getting your hair cut like a Moreno. You know what I'm saying? And that's because it was because he was leaving his culture, coming into my culture. And Fat Joe, no disrespect, I'm going to say this 1,000 times, but we know that that's not your culture of rapping on the mic, listening to James Brown and, you a fly dude too. Like I know Fat Joe be getting fly. You know what I'm saying? But come on, like let's just keep it real, and there's nothing wrong. Like you're an icon in the business and all that. But just listen, man, we all start from somewhere. Like I'm saying, none of us grew up where like from the cradle just knew the way. We all had to learn from somebody. We had to get it from somebody, and that's just what it is.
So for me, right, it's funny we're talking about culture. So I don't know who was listening to what in their houses, right? I know that what is called hip hop is definitely not something that was supported in elder households. Our parents did not want us doing this, right? They didn't. It was noise. It was just all something that they frowned on, whether you were Black, Spanish, whatever. But I just kind of want to stick to the point of creation. When you talk about the point of creation, and when they say that when Fat Joe is saying that, like Busta, I don't even really understand what Busta's point is. Like I'm just, Busta has me lost on a lot of stuff he says lately. But I'm starting, the more the conversation is taking place, I'm saying that maybe they're not talking about music. Again, maybe they're.
It doesn't rush. I hear what you're saying, but there's but just really, and me and you gonna go back and forth.
No, 50-50.
No, but listen. There is.
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is,
listen, those dudes were born in the 70s. There's nothing. Hold on. There's nothing but music. By the time they got of age, it's nothing but music. There's no more breakdancing. There's no more scratching. There's no more. Routines. There's no more. It's none of it. It's just the music. So what else could he be talking about?
What I'm saying is how, I guess for me, and this might.
Yo, Glaze, take him out of here, yo.
I explained that to you earlier, though, right?
But what I'm saying is, for me, I think somebody was talking about Queens. I think Divine, you was talking about how in Queens, the elements of hip hop were very different. Like for me, breakdancing, I remember going to the parks. I remember, even breakdancing, the original Outlaw Brothers from 96th Street, from 97th Street. We all used to breakdance, but that wasn't something that we aspired to. What we aspired to was was the mic, right? The routines. Come on, man, you gotta get in. I'm sorry, man. I'm picking up my daughter, guys. Right, the getting on the mic, spit and fly routines, and the dance routines. But it wasn't. The dance routines wasn't breakdancing. So I'm thinking that maybe the Latinos are saying that breakdancing was as vital to the hip hop as the mic is. Maybe that's what the claim is.
Okay, but here's the point with that. We got receipts. Breakdancing started. We got black people breakdancing in Africa. We got black people breakdancing in the 30s. But they can't claim that. We got receipts for that. And they can't claim graffiti because that guy from Philly is credited with Cornbread being the first graffiti artist. So we got the receipts for that. So they didn't create graffiti and they didn't create breakdancing.
Right.
The receipts are in.
All right, let me say something about graffiti. I know a lot of Divine and Southside, y'all had more like houses and stuff. In Corona, it's like, we got more buildings, apartments, and whatever. So we had the graffiti thing going on. I know a lot of graffiti artists from back in the days, but those guys that were graffiti artists, they really didn't go to the parks. They were kind of, I don't want to say they were nerds or whatever, but they were different. They were artists. They wanted to go to the train yards and spray paint, and it wasn't like they was in the music. Now in the Bronx, maybe it was like that they rode on the train and then at night went to the park and got on the bike. I don't know, but it was just different. It wasn't, because the graffiti thing was going on for a very long time, that you would see the tags in my building. I would see the tags, and then you get on the 7 train, see the top to bottom masterpieces, but it had nothing to do with the park stuff. Like you didn't even see those guys in the park really. Like they was doing their own thing. It was just different.
Again, that's part of the written word, the spoken word and the written word of young people expressing themselves.
Right.
And that was, you find that in many places and many time periods.
I think one of the elements of hip hop should be knowing your hip hop history. They need to add that.
See, this society is doing the censorship like they were doing back then. They have no problem with dancing, how you dress, It's what you are saying, the context of what you are saying, and how does it influence or move the people. The MC means to move the crowd. What are you saying? What impact are your words or your music having on the psyche of the people? That is what is the big concern. That's why there's so much censorship. That's why hip hop or the rap music took a change of what you hear on the radio. There's certain records, like as all of you know, that you only heard when you went to the club. You don't hear them on the radio. So there's certain things that you will hear in the streets that you're not going to hear on the radio. So eventually, certain things that was being said in the streets made it to a record, wax. Then when the people really enjoyed it and they saw the impact of what was being transmitted, what was being said, the powers that be, white folks said, hey, we got to stop that. We don't like that message in the music. We don't like that voice. And they had to switch it up. Now they're going after comedy. So freedom of speech is not real in this society. And music and hip hop was the voice of the grassroots.
So, all right. So, fellas, we're going to come to a close. We're going to start off with Gerard. And, state your closing, like how you feel about this or your closing arguments or however you want to put it.
Well, real quick, I'm going to give my history real quick. DJ Gerard, Brother Black, Left Side City, Queens. Original member of Uptown Crew, Andre Rell, rest in peace, Andre, Heavy D, Trouble T. Roy. I've been into this music, hip-hop a long time. The Disco Twins is definitely super fan of the Disco Twins, DJ Divine. My thing coming in hip-hop, I saw my Latin brothers, they were there, but 50-50. that definitely was not it. The graffiti thing, I did the graffiti thing, running around with uni-wise, pilot pens, inks dripping all over your hand, stealing the erasers in the school.
Right, to make, yeah, right.
Uses the felt, putting it in the Tic Tac box, bombing. I did all that. So I did the breakdancing. But what kept me was the music and rapping. I even tried that. You know what I mean? So, and then
look, one thing, Glaze, I like how Gerard got that fake backdrop, like he got records back there.
Yo, baby.
Wow.
Mardi Gras. Mardi Gras. Hey, yo, real quick, I'm gonna let your brothers go. I forgot I was getting ready to say. So I've been part of this, man, and hey, man, I'm 56. Some of them guys, you're older than me. I've been to Downstairs Records, not the one upstairs, the one downstairs in the basement where Elroy is telling you to beat.
Elroy, yeah.
I've been there. I'm gonna leave it with this. Busta with we don't have a culture. I mean, that's crazy. I'm disappointed in Busta. You know what I'm saying? Right. I'm really disappointed in Busta, and I'm gonna leave it at that. Let your brothers go, man. Blaze, Hassan, everybody on the panel. Thanks for having me.
All right.
One.
Okay, we're gonna go with Robert from the Disco Twins.
Yep. Okay, that when we here, I don't remember any other stuff that was going on, but what we were doing in the park, in the streets, we were definitely in the trenches. So I don't know where those comments came from, and I hope it doesn't change the narrative of what's going on already. So I just like to say peace to everybody, and I just hope everything goes smoothly without no drama.
Right. Okay, Divine, Infinity Machines.
Well, I like to say that it's just foolishness for people to make statements like that at that high level. You know, back in the days, it wasn't a 50-50 thing. No way, no way. We had our culture. We had our black culture. We was the people because we was coming from the 60s, and some of us knew who we are. Some of us had knowledge of self. When I gained knowledge of self when I was at 5%, it made me aware of a lot of different things. And I know that this music, or what we call hip hop, we birthed it. We birthed it, and everything else was just adding on to it. And everything evolved. And people are claiming things that they didn't create. It's hard to say you created something, and if it wasn't and if it wasn't named right then and there. This is how I know that nobody created hip hop. It just evolved, and it just got different, and it got better, you know. And everything else that was added to it was added to it. It's kind of strange to me to really people say that graffiti was a part of hip hop, or I don't know, because I know it was the music. For me, it was the music that influenced other people. I don't see graffiti, or I don't see breakdancing. It was just at that time. That time, people danced. Like they did the Mary Hartman, they did the bump, they did all kind of dances, and but it's just foolishness to hear people come up with the narrative of they created something and they wasn't there in the beginning, you know. And hopefully a lot of people just don't believe that nonsense. But when it's coming from a person that's established and it's in the spotlight now, people believe it, you know. But it's up to us to really bring the truth to the people, because if we don't, like our son said, 10 years from now, they're going to be saying that Eminem was the first rapper. Yeah. That's sad, you know. That's all I gotta say. But all I know that in the early part of the 70s and in the mid part of the 70s, we created the hip hop. We created it because it became hip hop from what we were doing with our music, what we was doing with the turntables, what people was doing on the mic. It turned into hip hop, and then it got named hip hop. But it's been done. Nothing new under the sun. It's been done before. You know, it's just a great. It's just a music that influenced people. That's all, and it's just a great music. You know, it bridges.
I got it.
Okay, peace of love.
Yes. JD, I know you're listening, brother. Yo, man, it's gonna be all right. You know, it's gonna be all right. You know, I was never a DJ personally, but I've been around some great people, some great DJs, such as New Sounds, the Twins, and others. You know, but music is a universal language, and it has many labels. It's just labels, you know, and it's an expression of our spirit and our soul and what's going on at the time. That's what it is. And it should not be an censorship. This way we can be free to be and who we are. That's the freedom of culture of freedom. So with that said, I'm gonna say peace and thank you for having us.
Peace.
Black Russian.
One of the greatest hip hop groups, one of the greatest rap crews ever was the Cold Crush Brothers. One of the greatest rappers ever was Grandmaster Caz. Grandmaster Caz inspired so many people to rap. The idea that, you know, I really don't even like this conversation that was started by these guys because, again, it just convolutes the truth. It convolutes the truth. It blurs the lines. And the idea that it was even started by somebody who is so engrossed in the culture today is really sad. When you look at the first two hip hop movies, I can't, for the life of me, I can't even remember their names at this point.
Wild Style and B Street.
Wild Style and B Street. Even those movies, B Street, I think, actually played a huge role in a lot of confusion as well. They were good hip hop movies at the time, but it kind of pointed to elements that really weren't what the culture was really based on, and the people that really started this music. The reality is, it was started by people that didn't have money, people that didn't have a voice, and they weren't doing music that was from other cultures. They was doing music that was from black culture and was highlighting the life of black people. I mean, that's just the reality. So, again, for me, I know I said this earlier. A few of the panelists kind of got at me. I'm thinking maybe he's talking about in regard to breakdancing. Maybe he's talking about in regard to graffiti. I'm not saying that he's right, but I'm saying that when I think about hip hop and what hip hop meant to me, I'm thinking about the lyricists. I'm thinking about the showmanship. I'm thinking about the musical aspect of it. And maybe here talking about breakdancing. I don't know what he's talking about, but it's definitely not true.
All right, my brother.
I am hip hop. I'm a hip hop baby. I am hip hop. And you know, but anyway, peace. Black Russian, His Majesty. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me.
Ali Al, Grace and Style.
MC Ali Al, cool out for us. Daggone right. One of the highlights of my life was walking on stage after the Cold Crush Brothers walked off stage. I'm a young kid from Queens, and that was one of the things. That was a big thing to be on the stage, do a show where you got the Cold Crush on stage, the Jazzy Five, and the Treacherous Three. Thank you, Twin. That was all due to Disco Twins. You know, make sure we know that. And so I love hip hop and I love the Bronx and everybody and all that. But really, for me right now with this crazy question, these things, I'm actually starting to believe that these things are being said as a diversion or something, because they don't. These comments from Busta and then him all at the same time, it's like it's almost like a diversion. Because I know they don't believe what they're saying, yo. You can't possibly believe the 50-50. It doesn't make sense to say that. And Busta Rhymes with the no culture in America, and then saying, you know, that we got it from Jamaica, when you got receipts with Jamaicans saying that they got their music style from America. The thing you was talking to me before about how the Sky music and how they was copying us, all of that. And then so you came here and you gave us all this. I guess maybe some of it's coming from that Wikipedia article that says Kool Herc created hip hop when he extended the break beat. And some people are vibing off that, but it's a definite no about 50-50, and it's just a no. So I don't even know why we're going back and forth with this sometimes, because it's a crazy question. You know, it's just like somebody saying, I sneak in the room and I see one of you guys, y'all getting it in with a girl, and I stand there and I watch y'all, and then when she comes back 3 months later and says she's pregnant, I'm like, I was there.
It's your baby. That's your baby.
I got 50-50 on that baby.
It's your baby.
I'm out on that note.
It's your baby.
Right. All right. So I want to thank, you know, first of all, got to thank Mr. Glaze, the man that changed his life around. We got to give him a round of applause or whatever.
Thanks for having us on your platform.
Yeah, thanks for allowing us to do this on your platform. I also want to make mention to Disco Twins and Infinity Machines. You know, a lot of people don't know, like Disco Twins, they were, you know, twins, of course, but they did it all. When it comes to the tricks, running around the turntables, one on one shoulder, they did all that. They didn't only do that, they also promote. They were promoters and DJs at the same time, bringing all of the acts to Reese Center in Queensbridge. You know, I remember seeing everybody in there, Tetris 3, Flash, whoever. Then in Corona Travelers Hotel, he was bringing them out as well. And you know, I know a lot of people out there in the audience is watching. You guys need to do your research on the Disco Twins, because they were definitely a force to be reckoned with. And then you got DJ Divine from the Mighty Infinity Machines.
That's right.
I told Divine the other day, I think it was 78 or 79. We all went out to Liberty Park in Southside Queens, South Jamaica, and that was the first time I've seen that many Black people in one party. It had to have been, and I'm not exaggerating, it had to be at least 2,000-3,000 people at least.
Yo, don't they got the record for bringing the most show in Vegas in the park at the same time?
Yeah, well, probably so. But all I'm saying is,
they brought the record.
I just remember, like yesterday, going into Liberty Park and, you know, cutting up Freedom, all these people, and it was no issues, no fights, no nothing. And, you know, it's just a shame that the generation that benefited off of this music, they didn't get a chance to experience that stuff. Because I think if they would have experienced how it really was, that they would really have an appreciation, a real appreciation for this culture, and where, you know, that it's not just about the money. I just want to close with saying, listen, man, I just hope that the people that are watching this, and especially Fat Joe and Busta, listen, you know, you're speaking to elders. You know, everybody on here is an elder. And
not me. I'm the baby.
You know, no one here is going to steer you wrong. The truth is the truth. You know, a lie will go around the world. The truth, nobody's going to believe the truth, and that's just sad. And I just want to like be out with that, and you know, Glaze, maybe you'll invite us on here again one time for another chapter.
Listen, guys. First of all, outstanding. Clap my hands to each and every one of y'all. You know why? Because once again, very, very informative. And what I like is, guess what? When you got a bunch of grown men getting on a platform, no profanity, no negative energy, Everything y'all talk about was powerful. Even right now with my brother Black Russian, he had a lot going on, but he made sure he was focused on his contribution. So once
Black
again,
Russian need to get on out of here.
hey, once again, like I say, guys, listen,
Gotta
right
rise
now,
the road.
basically, what is here is a platform that right now is I would love to invite y'all back for different things, especially when it comes down to this hip hop community. And look what somebody's dropping our lap. The Black Table Cloth Podcast. Talk about these young people creating this demon music under the hip hop umbrella. So
That's
it's
a
so
whole
many
other
different
conversation.
it's so many different things that from the elder standpoint that we can come back and make this, a daily thing. It's up to you guys. I like the way it went. And you know what? That's what
Glaze,
it's
not to cut you off, Glaze. I just want to say one thing about like the climate of New York and just the country. The younger generation, they feel to think that everything that they're doing is something new. And that, whatever they're doing out in the streets, like they're the first. And like Divine said earlier, there's nothing new under the sun. Everything you did, we've been there, we've seen it, we've done it. This is a rerun. And also, I just mentioned that I went to Liberty Park. There was no issue. The jams in the park, it was always issues sometimes. The crime, it was ridiculous. You can't even compare the murder rate back then to what's going on today. Google it, New York, 2,000 murders a year, 1980, 2,300, 1981, 2,500, 1984. 2021, 400. We got to remember that we were kids one time too, and we was out there doing crazy stuff too. The kids, they need somebody to talk to and not bash them. You got to talk to these kids. You can't scream on them and yell at them, whatever. You got to let them understand that you know where they at mentally, that you've been there, and not try to criticize and all the other stuff, because they're not going to listen to you and they're not going to trust you.
Yeah, we had community centers back in those days. Community centers. They ain't got them today.
This is a whole nother conversation. But I do want to say one thing. And I know Haas and Glaze, you said I know y'all kind of up there, so y'all need rest. Y'all want to go. I'm the baby of the bunch. But I do want to say one thing though. As quote unquote OGs and uncles and elders, whatever, we got to remember hip hop. What's known as hip hop, again, I don't even remember when we start calling this music hip hop, but it was always the voice of young people. One of the differences today is it's no longer the voice of young people, it's the voice of commerce. And that's a huge difference. It's the voice of commerce today. It's not even, this stuff is not about the culture. We hear that term a lot, and you really hear that term amongst black people in the culture because we understand the necessity to preserve it. But it's really not about the culture. When you look on social media, when you look even on TV commercials, you don't see black people selling this. You see this stuff used with a whole lot of other people, and like I think somebody said, 10 years from now, you'll think that Eminem was the first rapper. 20 years from now, you'll think that these rappers that are coming up today actually were the creators of this music. So that's something that we got to understand, that this is music of the young people, but today it's more so music of commerce. And that is something that is really diluting it and harming the culture as well, in my opinion.
Our next conversation, we get together. We can deal with that.
Yeah, Black Russian and friends. Yeah, Glaze, we're going to talk, man.
Yeah, but like I said right now, is honestly speaking, I think, you know what? This is a blessing in disguise, because even when Hashan reached out to me in regards to this, and to me, like I said right now, is you never know how things going to go. But if you look at so many different platforms, only thing you see is so much of negativity and nonsense. And I think right now is this probably a way that we can get back by giving them clean, down to earth conversation like grown mans do with no drama.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we wear belt with our pants.
Yeah, right. Facts.
Right, but remember though, we did wear leads with our BBD showing. So it's just that they took it to another level. Every generation wants to separate themselves from the generation previous. So I remember leads, BBDs, where you could see the BBD,
nylons, BBDs,
nylons, whatever. So
Yeah,
but we
that
didn't show
pants is hanging off the
our
ass.
behind.
We didn't wear our
That pants
to our
is hanging off
thighs,
the ass.
bro.
no,
And then also too, the other thing another thing you gotta remember, man. And again, this is kind of right at the era that we're talking about. You had the music, but you also had quote unquote knowledge of self. That was a huge part of our culture. And it wasn't until the drug game later on that part of our culture started deteriorating. Knowledge of self took on a different meaning. But knowledge of self, so people were doing all kinds of things. Crime and poverty were always a part of our culture, right? But the things that people are doing today are vastly different from the young people. What the young people are doing today is vastly different from what the young people were doing of that era. And I think it's partly because of what's being sold, the idea of commerce. Again, this is a different conversation, but I really think commerce is, in spite of all the levels it has reached, is also probably the biggest detriment to the music. Okay,
Propaganda, music propaganda.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Conversation.
a friend of mine, he worked for Atlantic Records, and he said that they came in and they said to the black music department, all the A&R people, we don't want nothing coming through here but ass shaking, drug talking, and killing. We don't want nothing else coming through this thing. You know what he said? He quit. He left the job, and now he has a radio station, a digital radio station in Pennsylvania. But that's why, like you said, Congress, because they feel that if we get them to degrade themselves and to do things like that, because we're just getting too much power. So now what we got to do is we have to calm them down. We have to keep them at a certain level where it's not an intelligent level. We have to make them.
Yeah, you got to dumb them down.
But the thing is, right? It's not sold as degradation, though. This is the problem. This is what I'm saying. You got to think about it. Like, regardless of what anybody's religious practices are today, at the cusp of this culture, there was knowledge of self. Black people were trying to mentally be somewhere else in spite of all the adversity. That's not the case today. We're just trying to be rich. And as a result of trying to be rich, we're not recognizing that this stuff is degradation. Our women today, the things that we're doing, it's a different ball game today. And again, it's something, this is a really passionate conversation for me, and we can go somewhere else with it. But this is deep. I don't want to sound like a hater, right? Because when we start talking like this, we sound like haters. Oh, they got hating on hip hop. No, we're not hating on hip hop.
No. Tell the truth, brother.
But there is the idea that the money is created. The idea that this culture has created all this money has deluded people into thinking that this is also progress. This stuff is not progress.
Not at all.
This stuff. The levels of success. That the financial levels of success, financial doors that have opened up as a result of this, is not lending itself to the progress that really the culture is about.
Well,
this culture was about progress.
Right. So for me, my take on it is, it's no different than the 80s when the drugs came into play, when the coke flooded the neighborhood. It's the same thing. If you're young and I could get rich or whatever, selling drugs. That's what they did. You know, and now we're just in 21. It's not drugs no more. It's just you coming out with music that's killing the next generation because they're gonna grow up hearing that. And it's just the same thing. It's just music now. No different.
Music is a weapon.
Been weaponized.
Yep.
I don't know,
But
man.
I know Glaze has to go. We in overtime now.
Yo, Glaze, we definitely need to talk, man. We need to talk.
You're heading for self-destruction.
You got to do this. You got to bring me back.
Hey guys, listen. Only thing I got is my word. I like this, and this is something right now where you know what, we can set this up on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. We can make it happen. That's my commitment.
I'm with it.
All right, so
okay, so you know, Glaze House, we definitely gonna talk about some things. I appreciate every one of y'all, man, I'm glad you guys invited me.
Glaze, we gotta learn how to hit the mute button on these guys.
Hey, you know what? If I got to do that to me, they don't need to be on it. I don't think nobody crossed the line or did anything. You know, I don't. Come on, man. You know, like I said, I love the energy. I love the positive. I love everything y'all brought to this table tonight, and it was an opening eyes experience. I still think Pro Kaz was first, then 69, but so like I say right now, we're going forward. We just change the information through Hashan, and we just make it happen, guys.
Yes. All right, that's what's up.
Good night, guys.
Y'all be safe.
Good night.
Okay, man. Y'all be safe. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Peace out. Peace and blessings.
Yeah, Haas.
Yo.
I was gonna tell him, make sure you drink warm milk before you go to bed now.